What is the graph? Let's check it out in this video. The graph is a decentralized protocol for indexing and querying the blockchain data. Not sure what this means? No problem. Here's an explanation. You know Google, right? In really simple terms, the graph is the Google of blockchain. It's a simplified comparison and not 100% accurate, but it's really great for explaining what the graph does. With Google, you can search the world's information, including web pages, images, videos, and all that. With the graph, machines can search the world's blockchain data. Indexing blockchain data is really hard. There are many projects in the crypto ecosystem with really complex smart contracts like Uniswap and NFTs like Bored Ape Yacht Club. All these projects store data on the blockchain, but it's really difficult for them to read any of that data aside from really basic information. You can read the total supply from the blockchain without much issues. You can also get a contract ID of a given ape NFT really fast, but you'll have a tough time trying to get any dataset that is more complex, like advanced real-world queries and operations like aggregation, search, relationships, and non-trivial filtering. For example, if you want to query the ape NFTs that are owned by a certain address and filter by characteristics, it would simply not be possible to get that data from the contract itself. Imagine the dilemma. If you really wanted to get this data, you'd have to process every single transfer event ever emitted on the blockchain, read all the metadata of the token ID, and then aggregate all of this data in your own database. Even for such relatively simple questions, it would take hours or even days to get an answer. You could also build your own server, process the transactions there, save them to a database, and build an API endpoint on top of it all in order to query the data. However, this option is resource intense, needs maintenance, presents a single point of failure, and breaks important security properties required for decentralization. So, the graph has emerged as a solution to a complex problem. And the best of it all, it's way cheaper and less resource intense to simply use the graph instead of doing it all by yourself or using centralized services that are not reliable. The graph allows dApps and developers to query the data of different blockchains. The graph indexes all the vast amounts of data you can find in the blockchain ecosystem. And we're speaking about terabytes of data here. It indexes every event, every transaction, everything on a blockchain. And once all this data is indexed, the graph enables machine-based automatic queries. So while Google is for end users searching information on the web, the graph is for machine-based queries. Let's spice it all up with an example so you better understand what the graph does. Here's an example. You surely know Uniswap. The graph powers websites like Uniswap with data from the blockchain. So when you visit Uniswap, simply when you load its website, it loads live data from the blockchain that is delivered by the graph. As an end user, you may not notice anything. That's how seamless and fast it all works. But why would Uniswap prefer to use a decentralized indexing service like the graph instead of a centralized service? Well, it's simple. For example, costs. Using the graph is more cost efficient than running your own infrastructure thanks to its low query fees. Uptime. The graph provides unbeatable uptime. Everything is decentralized, so there's no single point of failure, as is the case with centralized services. Independence. The graph eliminates reliance on centralized services. Syncing speed. The graph syncs blockchain data at unbelievable speeds. And one thing not to neglect is that users can avoid vendor lock-in with the graph. If it wasn't for the graph, data consumers like Uniswap would have to run their own proprietary indexing servers, which require significant engineering and hardware resources. So yeah, that's what the graph is.